What's going on, everybody? This is Moose and Brian here from OccupyFantasy.com, at OccupyFantasy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm your host, Moose, at CFB_Moose on Twitter is where you can find me. I'm the co-founder and data guru here at OccupyFantasy.com, alongside Brian at BrianJesterFF on Twitter, co-founder and CEO of Occupy Fantasy. What's going on, Brian?
Oh, what's up, Moose? Crazy week in all sports, and yeah, this slate tomorrow is it's a slate, and that's about all. That's about all I can say about it.
I know, it's so funny. So for those who don't know, I'm learning Korean, and it's like I'll go for like do like my lessons, and I'll be like gone for like an hour, 2 hours, and I'll come back, and like 47 players are out, and I'm just like, what is going on?
Dude, I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, not that many changes today, but we still got another 24 hours before the game starts, so a lot can certainly shift.
Yeah, so this is just such a crazy week in the sense of games being postponed, moved, all that stuff like that, players being out. It's very tough, and I guess we can just jump right into it. I see we got the first question here from David, saying, lowering his bankroll this week due to the COVID chaos. Is it still optimal to go 3-1 in smaller high-risk contests and leagues? Brian, I almost think, for my preliminary builds, I'm doing some more 3-0s and even some 2x1s. What do you think?
Yeah, so here's if you start from a very high level on what the slate looks like, right? We have 0 games with a total over 48 points. We have how many games with double digit favorite? 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 5 if you include Miami. 5 games with a double digit favorite. Only 9 games on the slate. 2 got moved to Tuesday because of COVID reasons. So we have massive favorites, no high totals. The running back position is utter trash. We have some talk on the worst teams in the league. And to me, when we don't have a ton of plays that we like, I think we have to lean into correlation even more. So for me, and we've talked about this there's been some weeks this year where we've had big favorites. Honestly, none as many as this week. No week is as many favorites as this week. So to me, I think 3-0 is the way to go, right? If you're looking for a safety, right, you 3-0 Buffalo, you 3-0 Arizona. I guess it gets kind of tricky after that, but those are the two stacks most with high-powered offense that are actually good that you can get multiple pass catchers in the game from.
Yeah, and I think with every game, we've talked about this kind of strategy beforehand where if everybody has a low total, no team has a low total. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yes,
or if
exactly.
every team's a 10-point favorite, like there's no big favorites. Everyone's a favorite.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think you go with the good favorites: Buffalo, Arizona. Yeah, I think that works out for me. But a stack that's been creeping up for me lately, Brian, when you and I were talking about it right before the show, was San Francisco, and I think that definitely is a team that you could stack in a little bit higher risk contests. You could 3-0 stack them.
No, I definitely think so. So they're almost a 10-point favorite. They're right on that threshold of whether or not we want to bring a player back from the other side. And Atlanta does have some guys that we could bring back, right? Whether it's Kyle Pitts or Russell Gage. They're talking about limiting Cordell Patterson's workload, which is certainly scary. But to me, they've been more pass heavy lately since Elijah Mitchell's been out. Elijah Mitchell's out once again. Jeff Wilson hasn't been efficient, hasn't looked great. And as a result, go figure, but they've been getting the ball in the hands of their best playmakers in George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, which is probably a better move than just jamming Jeff Wilson up the middle 20 times. So to me, as a 10-point favorite against a pretty poor defense on the road, traveling to the West Coast, a cheaper quarterback in Jimmy G, because Jimmy G is just 5,800 on DraftKings, 6,700 on FanDuel, and you get to pair him with 3 stud pass catchers. You pick 2 of them. I really like that move.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the model standpoint, again, the model is built for high risk tournaments. You have Deebo Samuel's the #1 wide receiver on DraftKings in the model. George Kittle, the #1 tight end in the model. I mean, that's really all you can ask for.
Like, why would we not play their quarterback then, right? That's really what it
Yeah,
comes down to.
exactly. Yeah. But you talked about running backs here. Let's see. Actually, I'll ask this question. Says, "What's up, guys? Have you even started building lineups?" I've I've done some tinkering, but what about you, Brian?
Yeah, I haven't fully started building yet. I was this morning scrambling for MMA because of course there's a COVID cancellation, but I was working on that first. But yeah, I've started building, and I have a pretty clear idea of what I want to do. So I'll start getting my stacks in there, start building it out, and then get it pretty much set for tonight and build it, and then just have some contingency plans in place in case the inevitable COVID cases hit tomorrow morning.
Yeah, exactly. Danny says, "Wild weekend. Appreciate you grinding for us." And David says, "Would you correlate their defenses from these large favorites?"
No, really, that's only a small slate strategy where you 4-man stack a team and you include their defense with it. I don't think you have to do that. There are plenty of defenses in good spots on this slate. And honestly, kind of capture upside because ideally, if you're paying, especially those defenses are expensive, ideally you want them to get a defensive or special teams touchdown. And if that happens, that takes your quarterback off the field for an entire series and takes a touchdown off the board from your offense. So really only a small slate strategy. And that's something you want to do even on a 9-game main slate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the model here for defense, and there's a bunch of cheaper options that you could fit in. That so you don't have to have that negative correlation with your own players.
Exactly.
Cool. So let me go ahead and I'm actually going to bring up the running back model here, Brian. We were talking about it. You said you're only going to play like 5 running backs or less, maybe even less than that. But yeah, break down the running back situation for me.
Yeah, so just to clarify a bit, I will end up playing more at my 150, but I legitimately only want to play 2 running backs in Najee Harris and James Robinson. Right? Najee Harris, huge workload, Tennessee, top of the model. James Robinson, Chris outlined it in the plug. While it's such a good play, Urban Meyer's gone, so there won't be any shenanigans with Robinson's playing time. They've already come out and said he's a starter. He's going to get a starter's workload. That's great. Carlos Hyde is out, so just in case they, even in the back of their mind, thought, let's get Hyde some more work, they can't. He's out, and he's playing the Texans, who are missing 2 of their linebackers, in addition to being just an historically bad run defense. So those 2 guys, great plays. No other guys I'm really excited about playing. If you just go down the list of the model moves, I'm going to explain. I'm going to say the player's name and the warts that they have for this week. So, Cordell Patterson, coaches said they want to limit his workload. He's not even he's not even lining up as a receiver that much anymore, right? So that kind of takes the shine off of him. Saquon, sure the workload's there, but they're 11-point underdogs. Michael Carter coming off an injury, plays for the freaking Jets. James Conner, also coming off an injury, barely practiced this week. They said he's good to go. I'm not fully convinced on it yet. Plus, Chase Edmonds is coming back, so we're going to see a split workload there. And they've held Chase Edmonds out as long as they needed to, and he's fully healthy now. He's going to get his usual workload as he had before the injury. Joe Mixon, probably the next best play, right? Pricey, but again, it's not a week where we have to worry about pricing too much. I think Joe Mixon's fine. Javonte Williams, split work, hurt his knee, barely practiced this week. Devonta Freeman, backup quarterback, missing some offensive linemen. It's also Devonta Freeman. David Johnson, just cue the gif of David Johnson running 1 mile per hour. Myles Gaskin's a great play. He's coming back. I like him. Jeff Wilson, talked about him. He's dust. He sucks. Zeke, also dust. He sucks. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, they're splitting carries. Deontay Foreman, splitting work with 3 guys total. And then we get into backup running backs or other split workloads. This is probably the worst running back week I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. Yeah, I mean, just stick with like the 3 running backs. I don't even know how I know if you're playing 150, you can justify some of these other people, but I don't know how you get out of those top 3 that you were talking about with Harris, Robinson, and Mixon. I don't know how you can play any of these other running backs.
Yeah, I mean, again, for large field tournaments, we have to figure leverage, and there's certainly ways to get there. But for smaller contests, right, there's no reason to go away from those guys. I even think the model's got a little bit wrong with guys like Melvin Gordon and Chase Edmonds as they split work, and they could be options. But again, like, we're talking about a bunch of split workloads here. I think it's definitely a week where you want to flex a wide receiver. I think it's and because of this, right, we want to correlate even more. So yeah, it's I mean, just every angle this week is super gross.
Or just lock button 100% flex. Just do Harris, Robinson, Mixon. Just 150 lock them.
That'd be so sick that each scores 2 touchdowns.
I know, right? But yeah, so if we talked about the running back situation and how much that sucks. Let's hop back over to the plug. I'm going to scroll down some here. We're going to talk about some of the stacks that Chris wrote up. Chris is our NFL writer. We talked about each of these a little bit individually, but let's dive deep into them, Brian. First one is the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, pretty much there. Let's just hope they don't have horizontal air raid, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually like that DeAndre Hopkins is out. Um, so he's out for this game, out for the rest of the regular season, and his target share this year hasn't been what it was in years past. So him being active has forced us, if you stack Arizona, to play him because we know his upside, but it hasn't been there this year. Now without him, now we got three underpriced receivers around him that don't have to compete with targets with DeAndre Hopkins. So for me, it's a great double stack environment. So Kyler plus 2 of his pass catchers because we get Christian Kirk, who, and I'm gonna just read the snap counts from when the 3 games DeAndre Hopkins missed this year. You'll get a sense of how much playing time these guys are going to get. So DeAndre Hopkins missed weeks 9 through 11. In those games, Christian Kirk played 73+% of the snaps, which is basically higher than he's played the rest of, in any other games throughout the year. AJ Green 70% of the snaps plus. And then Antoine Wesley, who basically is a direct replacement for DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, plays 76% plus in all 3 games, and he's a deep threat type of guy against Detroit. So to me, you can you double stack Kirk, Wesley, AJ Green, I guess Rondale Moore if he can break one of his like 10 screen passes. But the fact that all these guys are cheap, plus even Zach Ertz, right, makes it an incredibly affordable stack with on a team that normally spreads the ball out a ton. One pass catcher out of the mix just makes it even better.
Yeah, I think Wesley is like super high risk. He's barely not even showing up in the model actually, but yeah, but hey, no, what you pointed out there is great. Anytime you can get wide receivers that are running 70+% of the snaps and is a deep threat, I can always see that as an option. DotBest has a question here. Says, are there any mini stacks, 1x1s that you bring back with your 3-0 stacks?
Yeah, I guess there are some, right? Maybe like that San Francisco Atlanta game. I like Pittsburgh and Tennessee some. Miami and the Jets. Denver, Cincinnati. Like some of these games that you wouldn't want to fully stack, you could certainly bring it back. Or hell, maybe it's just like NBA last night. But for those who play NBA, I only played because I had tickets. There were 3 teams that just had massive injuries and COVID, and there were like literally 3 guys from 3 different teams were in optimal lineups. So it was like 3 Magic, 3 Kings, 3 3 Bucks. So maybe we just go 3-0 Bills. We add in 3 Cardinals. We add in 3 Packers or whatever, and then that's the winning GPP lineup.
That would be nuts.
Don't do that actually, but I'm just saying it's funny how concentrated some of these team totals are.
It really is, yeah. Next one here is the Bills. Josh Allen is the top quarterback on our model, and while the Panthers have been very stout pass defense this season, Buffalo's elite blocking and talent at the wide receiver position show out Allen to win in this matchup. So I like one of the Bills as like one of my top tier of these large favorites. So the Buffalo's going to be in my stacks when I'm building lineups. I'm curious to get your opinion on them, Brian.
For sure. Definitely 3-0 stacks, and DJ Moore is an underperforming wide receiver, so if you want to run some 3-1 stacks, I get it. But yeah, Diggs, Beasley, there. The big news here is Emmanuel Sanders is out, which means Gabriel Davis, who's been great in showdown slates, finally gets a piece of the action on a main slate, but he is going to be popular, so I prefer to play him in stacks if at all.
Okay. Cool. Excuse me. And then the one you said that you didn't necessarily like, but again, it is a stack, is the Dallas. The 4th highest implied team total going against the Giants. He, like Kyler above, he also projects to see below average defensive pressure. Anytime, we talked about it before, anytime a quarterback gets less pressure, usually means he does well. But, there's this, I don't know if you want to call it a split backfield with Zeke and Pollard, but there is some there that can, you also said Zeke's dust, but I'm curious to see what your opinion is on this as a game stack.
So it pops by a lot of metrics, right? So a high team total, Giants defense is doo-doo. Dak has all these weapons that have high ceilings. But the 2 big issues for me, one, it's a divisional rematch. We know we like to try to avoid those games if at all possible. Passing volume and scoring drops by 10 to 15% in divisional rematches. Again, there's a gross slate, so that 10 to 15% drop may not mean much. The bigger issue for me is Tyron Smith is out, their left tackle. And again, it's very risky to look at on-off splits in NFL because there's so many players, so many moving parts. But, when Tyron Smith is out, it's a very big difference for this offense. And maybe they run the ball more. And again, the Giants don't get a ton of pressure on the quarterback, but Atlanta that one year didn't get a ton of pressure on the quarterback when Tyron Smith was out, and the one dude had 7 sacks. So it's a big loss for this offense, and Dak hasn't been playing that well anyways. Maybe this is a get-right spot for him, but I think there are enough red flags that I don't know how I feel about fully stacking it.
Yeah. Excuse me. For some reason, I cannot get this cough working on, so if I keep coughing, sorry. But, yeah, no, it's tough. I feel like I could even see, like, I don't know how efficient this is, Brian, but could you see, like, a 2-0 mini stack from Dallas outside of your main game stack?
Yeah, I think if it did get there, it would probably only be a 2-0. So like Dak and
Mhm.
CD or Dak and Amari or Dak and Gallup. I find it hard. I know Dallas runs a ton of plays, but I have a hard feeling that they're going to run enough high value passing plays to get 2 pass catchers into the optimal.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. David says, if you're stacking the Cardinals, do you omit Connor and go with 2 pass catchers?
Yeah, I definitely think so. He should lose passing game work to Edmonds this week. He could be limited with that ankle. And ideally, if you're stacking the Cardinals, you want Kyler to be throwing the ball and not handing it off to James Conner at the goal line. So I think it's definitely avoid stacking Conner with Kyler.
Makes sense to me. Here, and then the other game stack that Chris wrote up is that Green Bay at Baltimore game. Brian, how much, how much Galaxy Brain would it be to stack Baltimore, the Baltimore side? I know backup quarterback flowing in, but he does have some rushing ability. I could see it get there.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad, right? The total's only, I mean, the spread's only 6.5, right? So it's easily a game that you could stack the underdog quarterback. Huntley runs a ton and he's cheap. I would probably pair him with Mark Andrews, just because Huntley does throw shorter passes down the field than Lamar does. And if you're looking for another reason, the Packers' best defensive lineman, Kenny Clark, is on the COVID list and he's out. So I could see it. I could certainly see it. I don't think it's that bad of a play. I personally really like the Green Bay side because obviously we have Devontae Adams. Obviously, Marquez Valdez-Scantling's an underperforming wide receiver. But to me, if again, and we talk about teams missing cornerbacks and missing defensive players, especially now with so much COVID going on, there are some big absences on some of these teams. And for Baltimore specifically, Calais Campbell is out due to injury, one of their best defensive linemen. But then their signal caller, like, you know how defensive players wear the green dot and they have the radio in their helmet and they call the plays? For them, it's Chuck Clark, their free safety. He plays all over the field, does everything for them. He's on the COVID list. He's out this game. So basically, their defensive quarterback is out against Aaron Rodgers. So to me, that's a smash spot for this Green Bay offense. You just got to hope that the touchdown variance doesn't favor the running game.
Yeah, I like that. And hopefully with MVS as the underperforming wide receiver, let's hope that at 5 minutes in, we're all in the Discord with the UPWR emoji.
Yes, please.
Yes, definitely. Dot says, is Lamar for sure out?
He's not for sure out, but he didn't practice. They signed Josh Johnson off the Jets practice squad to their active roster. Basically, all signs indicate that he's not going to play. Still an outside chance, but it just seems very, very. He's listed doubtful, I think. No, he's questionable, I think. But either way, all signs point them probably not playing.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Yeah, it sucks for our other co-founder Waleed. He's in a big fantasy football league, and his 2 quarterbacks are Taylor Heineke and Lamar Jackson. So
yeah, and that's in the FFPC where there's no playoff free agent acquisition. So just a rough stretch for him.
Very rough. What's up, Ed? He said, "What's up? I know this is main slate talk. Any thoughts on tonight and why TY captain will be the winner? Belichick will focus on Taylor and Pittman."
What's up? Yeah, let's talk about tonight's game really quickly. If you guys have questions about tomorrow's main slate, certainly hit up the chat. It's a pretty trash slate. I think we hit on most of the key points anyways, but if you have more questions, let us know. We can talk about tonight's game some, Moose. So you tweeted about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, when Alvin Kamara set the record for DK captain ownership at 43%. Yeah. I think we'll see the same thing tonight with Jonathan Taylor. There's really no one else to really take away the captain ownership. There's enough value plays because Damian Harris is out that allow you to fit it in. So Taylor's going to be ridiculously popular at captain. And I don't know, Moose, maybe you feel differently, but for someone who's not as dynamic of a pass catching back as like Kamara or CMC, to be 40% at captain against a great defense is mind numbing to me.
So when I first saw this, I was like, okay, that seems like somewhat reasonable. I mean, might be a little bit over exaggeration, but my first thought was, you don't play him a single at captain ever, like, because if he's gonna be over 40%, 50% captain, that means all the good lineups and the good uniques in the less than 10 dupes is what we like to also call it as well, are going to be taken if half the field already has him. So my first thought was, don't play any JT and play a little bit more optimal around the other captains. So I know, Brian, I think you said you have like 4 to 6 captains on normally for a showdown. Is that right?
Yeah, generally I try to be on the lower end there if I'm making 150, but yeah, somewhere in that range.
So I mean, how crazy does, or galaxy brain does this sound if you do something like 8 to 10 and play it a lot more optimally? And so if basically instead of playing a 200,000 field tournament, you're really only playing against 100,000 because half the field has JT captain. And if he goes off, like, it doesn't matter if you have him or not. Even if you get first, you're probably splitting with 150 people.
Yeah, like that's a really good point about the number of uniques. You got to make some really bad lineups and/or include the Michael Burtons of the world to get a unique lineup with a JT captain. And all of our simulations and research show that less captains is better for mass multi-entry. However, those weren't when there were a 45% captain, right? Yeah. So it's a much different story. So yeah, JT we have at 42% captain, 49% flex, which is nutty. But yeah, you match or go over in the flex, which is fine, and then rotate different captains. I really like that. I think that's the best way to play it. As far as it being T.Y. Hilton, I'm not sure about that, Ed.
Yeah, I think I'm looking here. I'm thinking that's tough because if we sort by, because I mainly do FanDuel. I mean, you have. I'll be nice. I'll show the model here on the website, on the screen. So we're sorted by FanDuel MVP percentage, 44% JT, 27% Carson Wentz. I still think you can get there and not be like completely have to make bad lineups with Wentz captain. So I think you can go like Wentz, Jones, Ramondre, Pittman.
That's probably it. That's probably what you need to do on FanDuel. Yeah.
Do you think you drop down to any of these New England wide receivers? You think you can put in Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne at all?
I don't think so on FanDuel. I think Jack may do it because he's crazy. But on DraftKings, yes. Because this is a game that Indy better against the run than the pass, I believe. New England coming off a bye. This could be a spot where they open up the passing game more, especially after they ran 7,000 times against the Bills. They could open up more. This is a game where they could pass the ball more than they have all year. And if that's the case, these Patriots pass catchers are going to go way under-owned. So Jacoby Myers, especially, Kendrick Bourne, even Nelson Aguilar. So I like those guys as captains for sure.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, and just sorting by DraftKings captain percentage. Yeah,
42, 13, and then everyone else less than 10.
Yeah, so, and again, we've talked about it before where, or I just, like, usually you want to get away from the quarterback captains, but, I mean, if the game goes over the total, I can see Wentz or Jones being an optimal captain. Do you think they could get there?
Absolutely. I mean, if we're going to play a quarterback, we're going to play them when they're less than 10%.
Yeah.
And yeah, plenty of different stacking options to go with them. If you play these guys, they don't run a ton, so you'll definitely want to play at least 2 pass catchers with them at captain. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's a fantastic leverage slate. Will we be crying when JT goes for 120 and 2? Probably. But, you know, these are what high-risk slates are made of.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. The only other thing we talk about is for lower risk, I mean, you have to jam in JT as your captain. Like that.
Yeah, low risk is for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I think, what do you think about like the 100-player leagues, the satellites? I feel like you could go either way, right? Where you could play him or you could not play him. I feel like it could go either way.
Yeah, I was talking with Chris about this earlier. Actually, we had an in-depth conversation about it. I think the conclusion I came to on DraftKings, just with what it allows you to do with the rest of your lineup, I prefer to just flex tailor in even in the 50 to 300 player GPPs, just because in those contest types, especially on DraftKings, you want 2 players that are less than 20% owned. And by playing Taylor at captain, that eliminates one angle, and it also really constricts what you can do with the rest of your lineup. So I think you flex Taylor in the smaller contests, get one of these other captains in there, and then just play one non-trash lower owned player, and that's all the differentiation you need in a smaller contest.
And then final part of it is, when do you not play him at all? So don't play him in captain, don't play him in flex. Is that just like you just have to lock him in regardless?
I think in the higher risk, like the 100,000 player plus contest, that's when you start to consider leaving him out, because yeah, he's super expensive. There are ways he gets left out of the optimal lineup. He could have a bad game. He could score decently, but other players score decently. He gets priced out. So, I mean, for large field contests, there's a great argument to fading him.
Yeah, that's when you just play Naeem Hines instead. Just do 42% DraftKings captain Naeem Hines.
Yeah, that's when you get the double leverage for sure.
Definitely. DFS is back to the main slate for a second. What would be the deciding factor between putting a 2-0 or a 3-0 stack with a certain team? Great question.
Fantastic question. So really, it's about pricing and it's about the distribution of targets. So like Kyler Murray, for example, there's a bunch of cheap guys you can pair with them. Very, very conceivable that multiple cheap guys get there. The Bills, they're going to pass a shit ton, so conceivable that 2 guys get there. I'm trying to think of a team where you'd want a 2-0 instead of 3-0. I think probably like if it was the Colts, let's just say the Colts were on the main slate and that was the team you wanted to stack, and they were 10-point favorites, and you wanted to, then you would go like Winston Pittman, but that's it, because it's, odds are some other pass catcher from that team's not going to get there. Trying to think, so it's really about the concentration of targets and the prices. And as we've talked about before, when you stop bringing players back from the other side, the buy zero parts of those stacks, it is for those big favorites like we see today or this week.
Makes sense to me. Cool. So we're here for another 2-3 minutes. Ed says, is it chasing to just run 90% plus Kittle?
I think it's definitely chasing, but it's not a great tight end options either. So, if you're making less than 10 lineups, I can certainly see that.
Definitely. Ricardo says, this game has Naeem Hines' big catch for touchdown written all over it. Wouldn't be surprising. Until JT scores 4 more touchdowns and still in the optimal. DFS says, so you lean Steelers as a 3-0?
Oh God. So that's the game I'm struggling with. Because it's a close spread, you probably want to run someone back from Tennessee. The only like legit option is Julio Jones, maybe Westbrook Akina, but goddamn, that's tough. With the spread being that close, you want to run it back. So I guess just give me Julio and just pray.
Yeah. Ian says, pick 2: Stevenson, Gibson, Penny, Miles Sanders, Jeff Wilson.
Definitely not Jeff Wilson. Stevenson for sure. I assume this is for season long. So Stevenson, Penny. Yeah, Stevenson and Penny for me.
Okay. Rant says, is Foreman Titans main RB Sunday?
I wish he was. He looked good in the first drive last week, but they're still splitting 3 different ways. If we look at the snap count distribution last week for Tennessee, we saw, where the hell is he? Downton Foreman with 32%, Dontrell Hilliard with 34%, Jeremy McNichols with 38%, and that was in a game they controlled, right? Not even a game where they were trailing. So it looks like a 3-way split for now. Maybe they change this after a game or 2, but yeah, super gross. Foreman's the first guy, but I don't think he's the main guy.
Okay, makes sense to me. Good question here from Ed. It says, how unique is a Taylor, Hines, Bolden in the same lineup flex going to be tonight?
We know one uniqueness factor is playing a running back with their backup. So Taylor plus Hines is certainly more unique than if they were unrelated in some sense. However, Bolden's going to be incredibly popular. Taylor we know is incredibly popular. So I think this will be a little bit more popular than your usual backup plus starter running back. But that is one way to get unique without getting super crazy.
Yeah, and I imagine that if you pair that with, he said they're all flex. So if you did a cheaper or a lower owned captain or MVP, that could get you more unique.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine without. Yeah, I missed the flex part. But yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. David says, can we play 2 New England running backs tonight? on FanDuel and large field showdown. Builder likes 2 New England running backs if I fade Taylor.
We can, just because Bolden's underpriced. Both guys are technically underpriced without Damian Harris, so you definitely can. But just understand what that means for the rest of your line. It means we see just a run-heavy game plan from New England. It means you wouldn't want any of the New England quarterbacks, or probably none of their pass catchers as well.
Yeah. Rand says, I want to bet Pat's hard. You can do that.
Oh, it's hard to trust Carson. Yeah, no,
Oh. God, I need new context. I didn't even see that other half of the sentence. Want to bet Pat. Okay, yeah. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people believe that the wrong team is favored here. I still don't think New England is as good as their record indicates, but I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see tonight.
And then question here from Ed: any defense or kickers tonight? I love the Colts D, but I'm Homer and Bagley the beast.
I think they'll go overlooked compared to your normal slate, just because people will play Brandon Bolden. They'll play probably Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox. So yeah, I think they'll go a little under-owned, and I do like it tonight. I like both. I like if we expect the Patriots to pass more, you gotta like the Colts defense, and yeah, Badgley has been a beast. So yeah, I like it for sure.
Definitely. Cool. So it's 2:30. Couple minutes past our time. Brian, is there any last thoughts, comments, concerns, questions you want to hit on before I take us out of here?
I think Chris is planning another update to the plug either later today or early tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. COVID, still a thing, right? They changed the protocols, but that's not going to change players potentially testing positive now. So just, keep an eye out until inactives tomorrow, because very real chance we see a significant player or, offense, defense, special teams, or whatever, offensive line be ruled out, and we have to be willing to change. But again, we'll update you guys as we get that.
Definitely. So until next time, Moose and Brian here from Occupy Fantasy. Have a good night.